He built a dynasty, controlled the paddock like a politician, and led one of the greatest teams Formula One has ever seen. But in 2025, Christian Horner's time at Red Bull came to a crashing halt. How did a former failed driver become the most powerful team principal in the sport? And how did it all fall apart? This is the story of Christian Horner, the empire he built, the enemies he made, and the moment it all unraveled. Christian Horner's F1 journey didn't begin in a boardroom, it started behind the wheel. He was once a racing driver himself, climbing the ranks in Formula Renault and Formula 3000. But unlike the stars he would later manage, Horner wasn't destined for the top as a driver. By the late 90s, he saw the writing on the wall. So at just 25, he switched the lanes, founding his own F3000 team, Arden International. A bold move, and one that would lay the groundwork for everything to come. Arden quickly became a dominant force, winning titles and catching the eye of motorsport insiders. Horner had a knack not just for racing, but for managing racers. And that's when Red Bull took notice. In 2005, Red Bull bought Jaguar Racing and entered F1. They needed a fresh face, someone bold, sharp, and fearless. They chose Horner, who became the youngest team principal in Formula One at just 31 years old. And from day one, Christian made it clear he wasn't here to play nice. He recruited one of the smartest men in motorsport, Adrian Newey, the engineering mastermind behind multiple championship-winning cars. It was a power move, and it paid off. With Sebastian Vettel behind the wheel and Newey behind the designs, Red Bull entered a golden era from 2010 to 2013. 4 consecutive driver and constructor championships. It was domination with style, flashy, fast, and fearless. And at the centre of it all, Horner, pulling the strings like an F1 puppeteer. But dominance brings scrutiny. As Red Bull rose, so did the whispers. Horner was accused of favouritism, especially toward Vettel during the tense Multi-21 saga with Mark Webber. Team orders were disobeyed, lines were crossed. Internally, Webber claimed the team always backed Seb. And Horner? He rarely denied it. He backed results, not relationships. The seeds of controversy had been planted, and they'd only grow bigger. One trait that followed Horner throughout his reign: blame shifting. Whether it was engine suppliers, regulations, or the FIA itself, Horner had a habit of pointing fingers. When things went wrong, someone else was always responsible. It became part of his public image, relentless, dissatisfied, always pushing, but never wrong. Some admired the fire, others saw it as arrogance. Everything shifted in 2016 when Red Bull promoted a teenager named Max Verstappen. With Honda joining as engine supplier and Verstappen's meteoric rise, Red Bull rebuilt itself. Horner backed Max fully, giving him the keys to the kingdom. By 2021, Red Bull had the fastest car, the most aggressive driver, and a team principal who was ready to go to war. The 2021 season wasn't just a title fight, it was a political chess match. Horner and Mercedes boss Toto Wolff clashed week after week, on and off track. Protests, penalties, press conferences that felt like courtroom drama. Horner played the media like a violin, shaping narratives, defending Max's every move and firing shots at the FIA whenever it suited him. And then came Abu Dhabi. 1 lap, 1 decision, 1 championship. The ending of the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix sparked outrage around the world. The FIA's handling of the lapped cars and sudden restart handed Verstappen the title and left Hamilton and Mercedes stunned. Horner defended the chaos. He said it was the right outcome for the sport. But millions disagreed. Even Max's win came with an asterisk in the eyes of many. It damaged the FIA's credibility and Horner's reputation too. In 2022, Red Bull was back on top. Max Verstappen didn't just win, he dominated. Records shattered, margins widened. The RB18 was a rocket ship on wheels, sleek, fast, and untouchable. But as the trophies piled up, so did the scrutiny. Because the headlines weren't just about lap times and podiums, they were about money. Midway through the season, the FIA dropped a bombshell of its own. Red Bull had breached the 2021 cost cap. The violation, a budget overspend. Red Bull framed it as minor, accounting grey areas, procedural discrepancies. Some even joked it was strategic catering, a few too many team lunches, they said with a smirk. But no one was laughing. In a sport where every team fights for fractions of performance under strict financial constraints, an overspend, however small, wasn't just an error. It was a competitive advantage. The punishment? A $7 million fine and a 10% reduction in wind tunnel testing for the upcoming season. Critics called it a slap on the wrist. A penalty that wouldn't sting a billion-dollar organisation backed by an energy drink empire. Horner? He labelled it harsh. He held firm in press conferences, deflecting blame, questioning the process, and reminding everyone that Red Bull still won legitimately, he insisted. But the optics, not great. To rivals, it felt like déjà vu. A dominant team, bending the rules, dodging consequences. And Horner, still in the centre of it all, calm, composed, unbothered. Once again, Red Bull looked like it played by different rules. And once again, Horner was more than willing to hold the cards. By 2024, things were changing. Adrian Newey, Red Bull's legendary technical mastermind and the architect behind their most dominant machines, announced he was stepping away from the team. Officially, he was seeking new challenges. But behind the press releases and polite soundbites, the story was more complicated. Whispers from within the paddock pointed to growing tensions. Sources spoke of frustration, of Horner's increasing involvement in technical decisions, his hands-on style shifting into something closer to micromanagement. For a man like Newey, who had built his reputation on autonomy and creative freedom, it was a breaking point. His departure didn't just end a chapter, it ripped out a cornerstone of Red Bull's success. Suddenly, the Red Bull machine looked vulnerable. Less like an unstoppable force, and more like a well-oiled operation missing its most vital gear. And Horner? He wasn't flanked by his usual allies. He looked increasingly isolated, surrounded by success, but with the foundations quietly shifting beneath his feet. Then came the bombshell, early 2025. Red Bull, dominant on the track, polished in the press, suddenly found itself at the centre of a scandal that no championship trophy could outshine. Formal complaints were lodged against Christian Horner, not from rival teams, not from the media, from inside. Red Bull's own staff, the people behind the scenes, the ones who kept the machine running, stepped forward. The allegations? Inappropriate behaviour, toxic leadership, a culture built not on excellence, but fear. The whispers that had lingered in the paddock for years, rumours of micromanagement, ego and power games, were now laid bare in black and white. And the media? They didn't just cover it. They pounced. Headlines exploded across motorsport journalism and mainstream outlets alike. Every outlet wanted a piece of the story. Some defended Horner. Others demanded resignations. An internal investigation was launched, Red Bull scrambling to maintain control of the narrative, but the damage was already rippling outward. Sponsors hesitated, partners watched closely. Fans started asking questions. What was once brushed off as team politics or strong leadership now looked like something deeper, something systemic, and at the centre of it all stood Horner. No longer just the charismatic frontman or the master strategist. Now, a symbol of controversy in a team built on perfection. After weeks of denials and internal reviews, the verdict dropped. Christian Horner was out, fired from the team he'd helped build from scratch. A leadership reign of nearly 2 decades, gone in a press release. It wasn't just a firing, it was a collapse of an era. With Horner gone, Red Bull now faces an identity crisis. Who leads? Who controls the narrative? And most importantly, can the dynasty survive without its architect? Say what you will about Christian Horner, he made Formula One interesting. He was a brilliant tactician, a ruthless competitor, and a master of media manipulation. He built one of the most successful F1 teams ever, and he fought every battle like it was his last. But in the end, it was Horner's own ambition, control, and refusal to adapt that brought him down. The man who always had the last word in press conferences, now silenced. But in the world of Formula One, no one stays off the grid for long.